Hello everyone, my name is Lowko and welcome back to a best of 5 series of top level StarCraft 2. Now what I've got for you today is a Terran versus Terran between two top level players, and we find ourselves in game number 1 of this series on Nightshade. Spawning here in the top left hand corner with the blue Terran SCVs from South Korea, we have Cure. His opponent in the opposite corner with the red Terran pieces, likewise also from South Korea. They call this man the Machine, and for very good reason. This guy plays extremely mechanically focused, although recently I've been seeing him go for some cheeky aggressive builds as well. We're looking at none other than INnoVation's main command center. Alrighty, now, if you watch this channel regularly, or maybe you watch any professional StarCraft 2 in general, you probably know that both of these guys are absolute top tier players. So, as of me making a video on Aligulek, which is a statistics website for StarCraft 2, INnoVation is the current rank 6 in the world, and, well, Mr. Cure, the current rank 5. I know I've been hyping Cure up for quite some time. This guy's ridiculously good. He's winning a lot of the online tournaments in particular, and while he's struggling a little bit more offline, I guess the current world situation is kind of benefiting this man a little bit, right? Because most of the tournaments have moved to an online event instead. Anyways, obviously INnoVation, he's been around for a very long time. When it comes to total prize earnings, he's closing in on the $700,000 mark. And obviously that does not include team salary and, you know, sponsorships and all that. And for Cure, I mean, he's been around for a long time, but he hasn't really started playing at this level until maybe a couple of months ago. Well, actually, I think it's probably closing in on a year right now, but the guy is getting really, really good. As far as his current earnings go, ever since the early days of StarCraft 2, he has won roughly $83,000 in prize money. Anyways, long story short, we should be in for an excellent series. This was played during Stay at Home Story Cup a couple days ago, which is the online variation of Home Story Cup, obviously a very popular tournament. Now, one thing that INnoVation was doing during that event, and I have no idea why, he was randomly, like, posting question marks and things in the chat. I think this is a new development. Maybe he's trying to, like, convince people that he's not actually an artificial intelligence and that he does have feelings. No, he does, obviously, but he plays extremely mechanically. Every time I see him play any games on Twitch, the Mr. Destructoids, which is basically like a little robot emoji kind of thing, are always flooding the chat because he plays so mechanically. But these days, he's been showing a lot more character. And one of the things he's been doing for some reason is post random characters into the chat at random moments. Now, in the StarCraft 1 days, actually, for those of you unfamiliar, you were not allowed to really type anything. There were, like, very strict rules about it. If you typed anything that wasn't, like, GG or GLHF, you would basically be disqualified from the tournament. So there were, like, instances where the player literally mistyped their GG. They, like, typoed it or all caps or whatever, and they would get in all kinds of trouble. So, yeah, we don't live in those days anymore now. I don't necessarily know if we want to, like, start cheering on players that are typing in chat unnecessarily, but INnoVation, obviously, he means no harm. He's just, yeah, showing us a little bit of trash talk, maybe a little bit of confusion, just a little bit of variety. Anyways, here we go. First units have made their way across the map. There should be more than enough, though, for Cure here. Nice grenade. Forcing those units to back off, but obviously this is just a numbers game. 3 Marines do beat that 1 Reaper, believe it or not. And that does now mean that Cure is going to be able to defend just fine. He did go for a very quick expansion here on the low ground. Both players already taking the gases here on the low ground as well, the 1 gas that is, and they're now transitioning towards starports with tech labs, and then also a couple of Cyclones. Now, Terran versus Terran has a lot of potential to go to the late game, but in a lot of instances, we do see a lot of those games ending rather early. Obviously, since Terrans can make their barracks, their starport, and their factories at home very early on, they can also make a wide variety of units early on, since you can swap the add-ons, or the add-ons rather, and you can, like, you know, basically produce your highest tier unit at, like, the 5-minute mark. Oftentimes, we see these players switching it up a lot during the games, and they will try and probably outsmart the opponent. Now, a very heavy focus on Marines here so far for Cure. It is going to be that Raven as well from both players. Raven's absolutely critical in TVT. Love this, by the way, by INnoVation as well. Jimmy and his pal apparently are patrolling 2 different locations on the map, making sure that they can spot, say, like a Medivac or a Banshee or, well, even a Raven, obviously. They can see those units coming in really early. There's that Raven. So Ravens have a couple of spells that are really critical. All 3 are really good, actually, in TVT. So first off, they have the auto turret. You can throw it up, deals a bunch of damage, pretty straightforward. Then they have the interference matrix, which is also very important. You can basically shut down other units. And obviously in Terran versus Terran, we see that used all the time, especially on siege tanks. Disabling siege tanks, absolutely huge, because oftentimes it allows you to then stim forward with your marines. And then last but not least, in the late game, we do also see the anti-armor missile, which reduces the armor of units that it hits. It also hits friendlies, so you gotta be a little bit careful about that one. Regardless, Scan in the main base goes down, sees everything that's going on. Cure should be able to defend this Banshee, or rather this Raven, just fine. Third command center, though, already is coming up here for both players, and it looks like game number 1, we're just sort of testing the waters a little bit, right? Not a whole lot of scary things happening yet. Both players just trying to make a bunch of stuff, trying to get their worker counts up to a decent number. Now, right around the same time, despite them taking very different routes in getting here, they are starting to move out. Now, this all comes down to siege tank positioning and Raven control. Now, keep in mind, the Raven of INnoVation is currently in the top section of the map. You did get the siege up here first. You need that high ground vision as well. Siege tanks obviously can shoot away further than they can see. Since now most of the army, though, of Cure is in the middle of the map, apparently this is the moment where INnoVation has decided, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and move in. He's done it with 2 Ravens now, one in the natural, one inside of that main base, and that's really gonna slow things down. At the same time, there's also a Liberator over on the other side of the map. That one's gonna start shooting away at a couple of these SCVs. And since INnoVation is still sitting in this rather entrenched position, he's actually in a really nice spot here. Both players, though, end up taking a bunch of damage. Cure now sending some of his air units across as well. Reinforcing Vikings should be able to clean this up. But a lot of lost mining time here for both players, as they are just simply pretending like they want to fight in the middle of the map. But the real damage is being done with the units inside of the main base. Stimpak coming up right now. Both players pretty much taking an even amount of losses. INnoVation, though, definitely denying more mining time. You can see that right now as well in the amount of resources lost. And you can also notice it right now at this point in the supply counts. So actually, quite a lot of SCVs are going down here. Yeah. Both players lose a lot of workers here. Vikings have now also landed. We see landed Vikings fighting landed Vikings at the same time. Inno also moving across the map with the main army. This was spotted by Cure, so he also is now sending his siege tanks back. Raven also will return back home. Lots of damage was done there. 21 workers were killed by Cure, but does he have enough army units right now to deal with this as well? As you can see, army supply right now, 15 supply in favor of INnoVation, which is very significant. Now, he doesn't have the energy here for an anti-armor missile. The Raven! No, no, no! Oh my god. That Raven was probably just on its way back home. That's the one that did the harassment on the other side of the map. And right now, INnoVation is going to use this time to potentially actually leapfrog these tanks forward. Ooh, he's got to be so careful right now. Cure, that is. Yeah, this is 3 tanks versus 4, right? And I don't know the last time you counted, but 4 is bigger than 3, believe it or not. I know you should never do YouTube videos and math at the same time, but 5th tank also joining in. This is a lot of damage that INnoVation can do. Look how slowly he's approaching this. He knows he's ahead supply-wise. He knows he's ahead when it comes to the army value. But now that he's got that high ground value as well, right? He can see further away with his tanks. He can get a tremendous amount of damage done with his own units as well. Here come the boys. They are pulled away from the mineral line. One of the siege tanks did get disabled just now by that interference matrix. And I think there's just way too much of it, you know. Should be an easy cleanup. He kills all of those units. And I think that should be it for game number 1. The Vikings also land next to the tanks. Even splits them up to negate some of the splash damage of his own siege tanks. But a 16 worker count goes down here as well, and Cure GG's out of game number 1. Alrighty, so here we go. Game number 2 in this best of 5 series will take us to the map Eternal Empire. Now, actually, would you look at that? Mr. Cure apparently has decided that he wants to play this game right here a little bit more aggressively, as he's already sending out one of those SCVs towards the other side of the map, and a second one will be joining it as well. Now, for those of you that ended up watching Stay at Home Story Cup live, you may have noticed that I actually casted this quarterfinals together with Rotterdam live while the games were happening. The thing is, though, the reason why I decided to cast the games again, well, it's 2 reasons. First off, for some reason, I didn't join a couple of the lobbies in time. The games were already started before my computer, for some reason, loaded it up. So obviously, since both of these players are in Korea, we played these games on the Korean server. And my computer or my internet connection, I have no idea, but it took a little while to load up the Korean server and to actually join the lobbies. And in, I believe, 2 of the cases in this series, the games had already started before I could join, which is very frustrating. It's one of the downsides of doing an online tournament and, well, not having an admin that's starting the games every single time. Yeah, I basically ended up not joining in time, which is kind of frustrating. Secondly, there's also one map in this series, and I'm not going to spoil which one it is. Maybe it's this one. Maybe it was the previous one. Actually, no, it wasn't the previous one. But there's one map in this Best of 5 series that's absolutely insane. And I think a lot of you will really, really enjoy it. Well, I definitely want to see it again. I'm looking forward to it. Maybe it's this one. I don't know. Anyways, double proxy barracks coming up right here for Cure. Now, luckily for INnoVation, he did decide to go for the second refinery here. So that's huge. A couple different ways you can open up in TVT. One of the popular builds is to go barracks and then command center on the low ground. If you do that, you would just straight up die right here to the double barracks opener. Cure, though, is going to have to fight someone who's going to have a factory out here in a little bit. Love that supply depot over here. Cure already, well, he doesn't love it as much as I do, apparently. He already is he's already gonna gun down that SCV that's building the depot. That supply depot, once it finishes up, is gonna allow INnoVation a lot of vision there, so he can see where the units plan on jumping up next. Here's that factory, though, producing a Hellion already, which is gonna be great in the defense. Now, how many worker kills can Cure get? Starport coming up. Second and third SCV fall here as well. He's gonna get one more. There we go. 4. 4 workers so far in total. Can he get both of the boys out? He will. Okay. So that's nice. Really, really critical to get as many worker kills here as possible. I highly doubt that INnoVation is gonna take too much damage here. It all comes down, though, to the control between these two players. A lot of additional Reapers are being added on, though. There is a factory now coming up at home as well. It looks like for Mr. Cure, judging by the production tab. Now, he once again decided to jump up. Starport did finish. Tech Lab coming up immediately. A couple of the SCVs pulled away from the mineral line. One more Reaper does get killed just barely in the nick of time. And INnoVation with his second Hellion out right now should have a much easier time. Third one's gonna join here as well, eventually. Now, while the supply counts are even and the worker counts are even, the tech right now is heavily in favor of INnoVation, right? He's got an entire tech structure here ahead of his opponent. That's huge. He's still actually producing more Reapers. That is pretty aggressive. Reactor coming up here as well for INnoVation. Apparently, he's feeling pretty confident about this whole situation. Cyclone coming up here too. I think that Cure just wants to go for the command center here on the low ground as well. All right, so here's that Raven coming up again. Raven absolutely phenomenal. We've seen it before. Might just want to send that one straight across the map. Super, super beneficial to have that unit out in the early game, as it can really start accumulating energy early. So despite this not looking very, bad here for Cure, I mean, he did a little bit of damage. He is certainly behind at this point in the game, just because he loses a lot of time. Now, I like this. That barracks actually is going to provide high ground vision. So the Reapers can actually start dealing a little bit of damage there, potentially to that supply depot. Look at the dance. I love that dance between the Hellions and the Reapers. He really wants to kill that depot. Oh, actually, the Hellions decide to go towards that low ground. Bit of a gamble there, man. Yeah, okay. Yeah, Cure's just gonna push through it. Cure's just gonna push through it. He's target firing down the Hellions. Hellions obviously very, very vulnerable units. Right now with one of those... Oh my god, he's even forced to now use the auto turret, you know, instead of that main base. Not really what you want, but with one of those Hellions getting picked off immediately, this can now certainly deal game-ending damage here for Cure. A lot of units are being killed. Yeah, there we go. We even now see the Cyclone taking a lot of damage. He's gonna get the kill. He will. Raven also out of energy, which is a disaster too. Cyclone from the other side of the map did come up. INnoVation decides to type a question mark and then GG out. Yeah, that mistake there was not ideal. He ended up moving a little bit too aggressively there with the Hellions, and it immediately cost him the game. Okay, so map number 3, we find ourselves on Simulacrum. Now, you know what? I said I wasn't gonna spoil it for you, but okay, I'll be honest with you. It's this map. It's this map with the ridiculous game of Terran versus Terran. Now, I just want you to be prepared, okay? I just want you to be prepared. I originally actually planned on only casting this game right here on this map. But the thing is, I kind of felt like re-seeing the entire series again, and obviously I didn't get to catch a lot of those games closely because of the disconnect problems that I mentioned earlier. This is, yeah, a ridiculous game with TVT, and I think a lot of you are really going to enjoy it. Plus, the other maps that I did see, they were a lot of fun too, so yeah, I think you guys will enjoy watching the entire series. Anyways, I'm looking forward to this one, man. Now, maybe I don't want to hype it up too much. Maybe your standards are ridiculously high, and if it's not like Maru versus Serral, you don't care. Actually, Maru versus Serral, I meant that as a joke, but it's become a bit of a running joke in the StarCraft 2 community as well. Serral and Maru are considered to be the most dominant players of the last couple of years of StarCraft 2. I know that current world champion of StarCraft 2 is Dark, and I know that Rogue and Zest and whatnot are really good right now as well, but in general, Maru and Serral are considered to be the strongest players in the game. And, yeah, you know, like, obviously, a couple players are really close, right? So no disrespect at all to them whatsoever. But in general, they have won the most stuff over the last few years. And for some reason, right, and this is so weird, for some reason, they never really meet in tournaments. So I actually casted one series over in China back in 2018, which was part of the WESG. I think this was like in March 2018 or so, which is when they played a series. This was right before Serral really started dominating. And then they also played a map that I remember at the GSL versus the World, I believe early 2019. But that was just one show match and just one map. I believe it was Serral that ended up winning it. But whenever they like are close to each other in brackets in tournaments, or they are in like similar groups in tournaments, for some reason they always just barely manage to dodge each other. Which is so weird because most of the time these top level players play against each other all the time. But Serral and Maru, for some reason, never really face off against each other. Now maybe one day they will face off against each other. It's gonna be the most hyped up series for like 3 years time. And it will probably also be very disappointing then, right? That's what happens anyway. Whenever a series is really hyped up, usually it's a bit disappointing. One day though, I believe, man. I believe they will still face off. Anyways, pretty standard opener here from both players this time around. Nothing out of the ordinary. We do see that bunker coming up here as well for Cure, so he doesn't really want to take any risks. INnoVation probably not too happy after that previous game. That was a little bit sloppy there, obviously. He doesn't want to, like, lose those games unnecessarily, and I guess he just overstayed his welcome there with those Hellions for just a split second. Should be a starport once again. Tech lab already coming up as well. Reactor coming up too, so very, very normal. Double Reaper inside of the main base. Now this map features like a double jump up plateau over here, so those Marines got a couple extra shots in, and one of the Reapers ended up dying. INnoVation. Just randomly post a character. I think he's probably grieving over that one Reaper, man. Anyways, once again, refineries coming up very early here on the low ground. I think that's primarily done just to get that Raven out a little bit quicker. Ravens are just so good in this matchup. I think INnoVation probably is going to go for the switcheroo here in just a little bit. SCV goes down. Second SCV maybe as well. That's just because obviously Cure ended up sniping that unit earlier, and well, INnoVation was out of position just now. So eventually that Reaper will also pay for this with its life, but two workers going down there in the natural, not bad whatsoever. So that's a Raven. And well, once this tech lab finishes, I can guarantee you we're going to be seeing a Raven right here from Mr. Cure as well. I believe. There it is. Yeah, Ravens, the absolute bread and butter of TVT. They're like the support unit of StarCraft 2 in this matchup. Actually, isn't even mining out of that gas right now. I guess he's content with the amount of gas that he's harvested so far, and obviously he lost those two SCVs earlier too. That small advantage though does get built really quickly here for Cure, and apparently he wants to push that advantage even more by going for the third command center. Now INnoVation knows that his opponent knows that he's ahead, so because of that he probably assumes that his opponent is going to go for a third command center as well, and therefore planted down his third command center a little bit sooner. I know, mind games. It's a little bit greedy, obviously, but the defender's advantage in TVT is huge. This time around, also leaving that Raven at home. Actually, speaking of defender's advantages, on this map, they've made a couple of small adjustments recently with the new ladder season. So there's two changes. This pile of rocks right over here. So obviously the maps are mirrored, right? But this pile of rocks over here has been added, making this choke point over here tighter and making it a little bit harder to push through this area too. Meaning that, say you get a command center down on the low ground and a couple of siege tanks over here, that defense is going to be so much easier. So defender's advantage has indeed become more significant. And secondly, they've also added this little doodad over here. So this choke point over here is now also tighter. So basically what I'm trying to say is that these maps are a little bit easier to defend right now. Certainly helping out Terran players and Protoss players alike, making the maps just a little bit less Zerg friendly. Which I guess is fair enough, right? It's kind of funny how, like, initially they nerfed Zerg with the balance patch, and then Zerg players still kept on winning everything. Like, okay, crap, what can we do next? You know what? We'll make the maps much harder. We'll go ahead and add on Golden Wool, we'll add on Purity and Industry, and some of these maps will make it easier to defend, which is a clever way of indirectly nerfing Zerg as well. Kind of funny. I always like that. I like how no Zerg player really was outraged by it when it was clearly a Zerg nerf. I guess players on the Battle.net forums and stuff don't really care too much about it, but it's so noticeable, you know? If Blizzard would have announced instead that they're gonna like reduce the, I don't know, Roach HP by 5, I can guarantee you there would have been outrage, but since a lot of the people that outraged don't actually know the game that well, the maps apparently were totally acceptable. I'm firing shots left and right currently. Anyways, both players now securing that low ground base. This was scouted immediately as well for, or by INnoVation here. Cure doesn't know about that CC yet, but he can probably make the assumption as well. He's just happily building up whatever here, whatever he's got right here on this side of the map. Once again, both players going into bio. Mech, like, it's still popular in Terran versus Terran, don't get me wrong, but it seems like all the Korean players, though, they just simply prefer that bio style. It's just the thing that they've been playing a lot. And, yeah, the one thing that I assume they will be playing a lot more here as well. Love this, by the way, here for Cure as well. This is a very INnoVation-esque move, okay? Not so much this Cyclone, but these Marines. So he's got Marines in basically all of the locations where the opponent can be pushing. So if you notice right here on the minimap, he has basically perfect vision of every single corner. And now that he's adding on a sensor tower over here at the front too, he will know everything that his opponent has got going on. So there it is finishing. Nothing is really going to slip past the vision right here of Cure at this point in the game. And that timing was actually good because it seems like INnoVation wants to go for a bit of a move out. He just finished up the 1-1 upgrades just slightly before Cure, so that's nice. Jumps straight into 2-2 as well, which is very, very important. Armory does finish up here as well, so Cure can continue researching as well. Now, Inno is going all the way around, and I kind of love this, but it's also a bit of a gamble, right? Because this takes so long. And like I said, the defender's advantage is very, very significant. Scan does go down. Cure doesn't know about his army until right now. He needs to reposition those tanks. Tanks indeed now shovel back towards what seems to be close to the natural, but here's those anti-armor, or rather the interference matrix is coming up. Cure stims a ton of units from that main base down towards those siege tanks. And despite these siege tanks being disabled, I mean, that was an easy cleanup right there by the South Korean Terran player in blue. Always a risk, though. Always a risk. So, oh, actually, in the meantime, there's also a drop going down instead of the main base. I think what went wrong there for INnoVation with that big push was primarily how long it took him to go all the way across, right? So he went all the way through the top section of the map into the natural. And while that's a great little push, great little move out, it just simply took so long, right? So while that was all going on, Cure just simply managed to get more and more units out of those unit-producing structures that he had. And would you look at that? Mr. INnoVation loads up all of the medivacs once again. He just had a medevac shot out of the sky by these two Vikings, and he's like, you know what? Yeah, you can maybe shut down one medevac, but what about like 5 of them? I'll bring a Raven as well, just for good measure. It doesn't have energy for much right now, but it will get more energy here as time goes by. 2 Marines do get spotted over here. But INnoVation, he's got all of those medivacs ready to go. And this is something, oh my god, that Cure sees at this point, but it's a little bit late. The medevacs do unload inside of that main base. Raven desperately throws down an auto turret as well. Siege tanks get into a really, really strong position. And this is hard to clean up, man. How are you going to clean this up right now when you're the Terran player in blue? Well, you're going to have to stim forward, I suppose, and try and hope you don't die to those tanks in the back. He doesn't have interference matrices right now. He's moving forward. Oh, there come the Marines in blue as well, trying to clean all of this up. INnoVation desperately tries to load up as much here as he can and evacuates some of those units out of here. But at the same time, he's also using this time that he's created to move once again through the top section of the map. 4th base has not been secured yet by Cure, whereas for INnoVation, he already has a planetary fortress over there. Just now securing that one. The first mules just start timing out. And I love this. INnoVation constantly trying to keep the opponent on their toes. Now that scan there for Cure, or for Inno actually, confirms everything that he needs to know. Once again, actually loads up the Marines into the Medivacs, and they now go into that main base. Beautiful move there for INnoVation, especially if he decides to stim forward where, right there with that army and potentially go after the command center. Needs to be careful, though. Ooh. Actually, Cure cleaned up those couple of Marines, but he doesn't know about the big chunk of Marines that's over there. Needs to be super careful. INnoVation playing super patiently. Once again, oh, well, here we go. He finally decides to commit. Yeah, once again, going in with a counterattack. Ooh, could maybe have picked off that command center, but it's a bit of a gamble. Just using these Marines right now to buy time for that main army that's once again moving towards the third base here of Cure. Siege tank did fall. Here we go, though. Units inside of the main base still preventing any kind of drops, but obviously that means that the units are not going to be over at the third base. Medivacs right now on the right-hand side of the map, too. Dropping as much as possible. Cure forced in a really defensive position. There's no defense though in the natural, and once again, INnoVation unloads the Medivacs. He's hitting his opponent at a couple of different angles at once, trying to out-multitask him. Reinforcing units once again. This time around, go towards the main army rather than setting up a secondary force to maybe go for that planetary fortress. Ooh. Ready, Cure? Are you just gonna go in there? Oh my god, that is a lot of tanks there for Cure, I suppose. So you should be able to clean this up eventually. Bit of a gamble. At the same time, INnoVation right now inside of that main base tries to go after what seems to be one of those engineering base. Should be enough right now though for Cure to defend that. INnoVation still has a lot of units over here, but he's forced to evacuate them out of there. At this point though, Cure does have a couple of siege tanks as well, right? Ooh, he does have a couple of siege tanks already inside of the main base, so I don't know if a drop necessarily is the greatest move at this point. Cure, though, he's trying to set up with what seems to be a sandwich. Once again, INnoVation gets the Medivac drop done inside of that main base here regardless. So risky. There's already a couple of tanks there in the back, but this army is once more out of reach and very difficult to clean up. Apparently, this is the moment that Cure was waiting for, though. But at the same time, with INnoVation realizing that the siege tanks are gone from the low ground, he stims forward and, well, apparently will be able to pick up that command center. While this is happening, though, Cure has already decided to send those siege tanks across the map. Tanks inside of the main base still dealing damage, but this is going to obviously be in range there of that planetary fortress. And with this amount of tanks, that planetary fortress falls in just a second. He does still have a planetary fortress, Cure that is, so an orbital command there at the cost of a planetary fortress. Drop inside of the main base, though, still not cleaned up. INnoVation adding on a couple of additional Ravens, which is amazing. Command center will be planted down again on the low ground. Okay, so players are slowly but surely getting to the maxed out state, but I gotta say, I love the way at which INnoVation is maneuvering around this map. That little counterattack just now towards the planetary fortress is amazing for Cure as well, but INnoVation has been the one in the driver's seat of this game for quite some time. When it comes to the resources lost, though, pretty even there, all things considered. Actually, even a little bit more losses there for Inno, but he's been mining a little bit more too. Ooh, big anti-armor missile goes down on a lot of those units. I wonder if maybe Inno could have actually considered pushing a little bit harder there. And this drop in the main base, man, still not cleaned up. This is such a scary position, and there we go. Finally, Cure has decided that it's time to move forward. Okay, he's gonna be able to force the pickup on those Marines, gets rid of the siege tanks. And, well, oh my god, I was gonna say, was he gonna go home there? Not quite, no. He will indeed find out that there was a command center under construction, but INnoVation is forced to cancel that one. Once again, though, those Marines that were previously inside of the main base apparently are still not done. They tried to get the kill there on the command center. Is he gonna be able to do so? I don't think so. There should be enough defense here for Cure. At the same time, though, big drop inside of that main base as well. Cure going for the Doom drop, unloading literally everything that he's got inside of the main base of his opponent. Those siege tanks get in a ridiculous position. Those funnels, man. No, you can't stim the Marines there. Despite the interference matrices there, there's still... Well, actually, are there still any tanks remaining? Well, the tanks will start shooting again here at just a little bit because the interference matrix is running out. Those Marines are going to take so much damage. All of them get gunned down in just a matter of seconds. I forget how to speak English. And, well, that was an awful lot of damage there done by Cure. Great response there in the grand scheme of things by INnoVation. But that was a lot of Marines that lost their lives there. At the same time, Cure stims forward. Now forces the pickup as all of the siege tanks are indeed inside of the main base. So Cure is using this time after losing the Doom drop to take control of this low ground. He's very far ahead when it comes to supply count. Nicely done there. He's also just now killed 18 SCVs and tons of Marines. 193 worker or SCVs were killed there by INnoVation, who once again, of course, has only one way of responding here. He has to beat the Doom Drop by going for what seems to be a Doom Drop. Now, Cure does barely not see this. Actually, the command center over here was taken too, so maybe he's just going to go ahead and drop over there instead. Top right-hand corner by Cure also taken, so really nicely done. INnoVation, are you going to go for the main base or are you going to go for this one? Nah, of course you go for the main base. There's not even a command center anymore over there, dude. But just having this position is absolutely huge. There we go. And INnoVation should be able to take control of this main base quite easily. Now, here's the thing. If you get control of this main base, putting one tank over there will actually shoot towards the third base, which is absolutely amazing. If your siege tanks are in range of the ramp, like there's no Ravens over here for Cure anywhere, right? He's got no Ravens at all, just Marines and siege tanks. Oh my god. No, you can't do that. He can't disable these tanks, so he's going to have an exceptionally hard time trying to clean all of this up. A couple of tanks indeed now move forward in range of that mineral line. And that's going to make things quite okay right now for INnoVation once again. The sick is back and forth. Here we go, though. The Marines do all decide to stem forward. Is there going to be enough here for Cure to clean up all of those tanks? Marines even from the low ground gun down the tank on the high ground. And I think it will just barely be enough. A lot of damage, though, was done by INnoVation, but was that enough? He doesn't know about the base in the top right. Yeah, he has not scouted the base in the top right. That's huge. INnoVation also has a few Ravens. Now, I know I've been emphasizing their usefulness a lot so far in this series, but they are really, really, really useful. They can turn the tide of battle so easily. Just being able to disable 3 tanks alone would be massive. A couple of siege tanks in odd positions here for Cure. I think these were probably leftovers from earlier. Cure also trying to set up what seems to be a bit of a sandwich, though. Can he? I don't think he really wants to. Yeah, still has those Ravens. We really would love... I would really love to see some Ravens added on at this point as well for Cure. He doesn't have the gas for it, because he didn't take the gases in some of those bases, but... Well, once again, one of the Ravens overextends a little bit, but will stay alive. Oh, well, I say that. But they do manage to get the 2 interference matrices, rather. So, that does mean that... yeah, Cure loses those tanks immediately. Base gets scanned over there. Supply count once again dead even. Those Marines that were gunning down the tanks earlier apparently are now looking to see if they can go after the old main command center. It's now mining some fresh new minerals at the same time. Ooh, Cure is forced to defend his natural expansion. Planetary Fortress in a little bit of trouble right now. It obviously will deal some counterattack damage too. Marines over here get loaded up instead of the medevac after being denied at the 5th base location. And they're going to be going into the main base as well to try and pick up some of those reinforcing units. Cure takes a lot of damage on the Planetary Fortress. No repair over there. And he's ending up losing a couple of those SCVs here too. Marines, though, stimming forward once again, trying to go after as many of those tanks as they possibly can. Are there going to be enough? And I think there will be. Siege tanks once again get picked off. Marines desperately sacrificing their lives there for the Terran Dominion. They tried to make the most of this scenario, but now 20 minutes after the start of this game, who's ahead? No one is. Both of these players pretty much dead even. I think Cure is probably slightly ahead, but he doesn't have the correct unit composition. Those Ravens, man, they're accumulating energy. There's 4 of them in total right now, 1 more coming up. 11 Marines being produced here for the player in red, 12 being produced at once here for Cure. He's moving forward. He's got so many tanks, though, and sometimes StarCraft 2 is just a numbers game, right? A lot of interference matrices do go down, and a bunch of those siege tanks do get disabled. The boys pulled away from the mineral line, but INnoVation already sent them back to mining once again, apparently feeling confident that he's got enough to gun down all of those tanks. It will indeed be enough. At the same time, though, a drop going down over on the other side of the map, too. The exact opposite location of the base we just looked at. The command center being repaired, and it will stay alive. After INnoVation apparently won the engagement at the top, he's now also moving over to the Planetary Fortress in the top right position. They're obviously very close to each other. Siege tanks can easily outrange that, and with the upgrades on them, they're going to be able to gun down that Planetary Fortress with ease without taking a whole lot of damage. Marines in the bottom section of the map also do get killed. Looks like a command center. Yeah, indeed, is flying over there. That's the old natural. I wasn't sure if that was Cure or INnoVation trying to secure that. Base in the top right-hand corner, though, does get shut down. Orbital Command over here too is taking a lot of damage. Siege tanks get into a good spot. INnoVation though with the defender's advantage over here. If he can stim forward right between siege tank shots, that can do a lot of damage. But at the same time, he's also pushing on the other side of the map. Marines are leading the charge together with those Ravens. The boys are pulled away from the mineral line. And INnoVation, once again, just barely has enough to hold on. Look at this game. It's absolutely ridiculous. I do not want to be a Marine in either of these two players' armies, okay? Looks like the command center does fall. 16 Marines being produced here at once. Both players taking a ton of damage. Trying their very best to see if they can just simply muscle out the opponent out of this game, right? This is like an arm wrestling match right now. It's a constant back and forth, but both of them are trying to seal the deal here constantly. Interference matrix, though, once again does come up. INnoVation heavily ahead when it comes to the supply count right now. His army is huge, and he does have a better unit composition as well. Those anti-armor missiles, absolutely massive. He covers the entire army of Cure with that orange paint, and that does indeed mean that Cure is forced to GG out. INnoVation wins map number 3. Alrighty, so here we go. Match point for the player in red. On the left-hand side here of a golden wall. It's so sick though, right? Because those were very basic unit compositions. It's just medevacs, marines, and siege tanks. Now everyone and their dog, after their very first game of StarCraft, knows how to make those, right? You only have to play the tutorial and it will probably tell you how to make siege tanks and how to make marines. They're basic units, pretty straightforward, don't need a lot of explanation. But if you are very good at the game, you can get an insane amount of value out of those units just by constantly trying to be smarter than the opponent and try to, get more value out of those units as well. It's pretty sick. The multitasking required is insane. You have to be so on point with all of your positionings and the scouting, and everything has to be on point because it's so easy to lose. Anyways, here we go. We find ourselves on the next map, and it's Golden Wall. Love Golden Wall. I know a lot of people don't really love playing on it, but I love casting games on Golden Wall. There's the Golden Wall right over there, moving through the center of the map. Bottom section of the map only acquired by either mining out minerals or flying units over there, or structures obviously for Terran. They can make a command center over here and then fly it past the mineral wall towards the southern section of the map. But obviously it's also going to be pretty vulnerable to liberators and drops and all that as well. Two SCVs, high five here in the middle of the map. Actually, they didn't seem to even, look at each other or nod, Can't believe it. Looks like this time around, though, it will be that different opener. So the one that I was trying to bring up on, what's that map? Eternal Empire? Yeah. So this is the other version of the build that you can go for in StarCraft 2 TVT. You can either go for the double refinery early on and get yourself that factory out a little bit sooner. Or you can go for the one barracks, delay the second gas for a little bit, and then go for the faster command center. This is obviously a lot more susceptible to cheese. If you go up against someone who's cheesing, you'd be in a lot of trouble. But this map is obviously very, very big, and yeah, it takes a long time to really get much done. So, first Reapers moving across the map. Who gets the first shot? Well, that was Cure. Cure gets the first shot in. Ooh, I love that SCV as well, hiding right over here to try and get one little bit of damage on that Reaper too. Can sometimes change the tide of battle. And this is actually now forcing INnoVation to evacuate that low ground. Also does not lift up the supply depot for some reason, and that means the SCV is now taking a bunch of damage. Two more boys are pulled off the mineral line. Supply depot just barely does finish right now, but needed the final bit of work done right there by one reinforcing worker. Cure apparently decides to put up a bunker. Now this is not really something that's actually supposed to happen, but it's just him being a bit of a jerk. I love it. In the meantime though, command center is finishing up. Cure certainly is going to get that economical advantage, and well, while INnoVation is he's going to be able to defend this just fine. Yeah, there it is again. I think this is him with like a little frowny face or something like that. What's that? It's like a scarecrow. That's one of these things you put in your field to scare away like birds. I think that's how that works. Anyways, yeah, INnoVation is getting himself those Hellions out, so eventually he forced away those Reapers, but that was a lot of damage already being done here by Cure in the first 3 minutes of the game. Now, while that was going on though, the starport was delayed a little bit. Tech also was delayed here just a little bit. And INnoVation is going to be able to get his units out a little bit quicker. He was supply block though. Yeah. The supply block hurts because, you know, you basically not just bank on the command center finishing for economy and for mules and all that, but you also need it for supply. So if it gets delayed too much, which happens quite often, I mean, we see it right here. INnoVation hit a small little supply block. Very frustrating. Not something you actually want to have happen, but it happens every once in a while. Okay, very defensive posture though here for Cure. He's just getting himself whatever he can right now. So, economical advantage here for Cure, but obviously, economy, I mean, it's nice, it's important, but it's certainly not the end of the game here for INnoVation. Switching them over. The big switcheroo in the main base. Gonna start producing those 2 Marines at once. Just tries to make a big army. He does have a lot of Hellions, actually, though. This is a very substantial amount of Hellions, and there's not really that much here for defense right now for Cure. He did send up a beautiful arc, so that negates a bunch of the splash damage, but right now the Hellions just try to force themselves through that wall. At the same time right now, yeah, the mineral line is going to be in a little bit of trouble. INnoVation just putting all of his eggs in one basket. Gets 9 kills so far. Okay, a bunch of these workers are very low. Also, a couple of those worker kills obviously were by that Liberator inside of the main base, forming the distraction, the classic 1-2 punch. And just like that, Cure is no longer ahead economically. That was a very aggressive move there. Bit of a gamble, but I think that's probably what he felt like he needed to do. Got the 3rd command center coming up here as well, and now he's transitioning towards that very standard Marine siege tank mid-game. INnoVation, though, really showing us what he's made of, right? Ridiculously good player. Very, very impressive. He's been at it for so long, too. I was actually talking about this with Roddy on that cast, too, but he's been around since the early days of StarCraft 2, and he's always done really, really well. Most players, I've said this many times before, but they're only around in the pro gaming scene of StarCraft 2 for maybe a couple of years. But INnoVation, I mean, he's been doing it for close to a decade, and, I mean, I guess he's gonna have to do his military service at some point, but other than that, yeah, he doesn't really have a lot, right? Like he certainly does not show, he does certainly not slow down or anything like that. Really, really strong player still. Okay, so Stimpack did finish up for Cure a little bit sooner, obviously because INnoVation was so busy making those Hellions earlier, he couldn't start up the upgrade any sooner than that. Does go for the engineering base. On the other side of the map, though, that already did come up. 1 auto turret, forcing a little bit of mining time away there. But it's not going to get any proper kills. Look at the Ravens, always moving around. I saw a comment of someone pretty recently saying, Lowko, why are Ravens never used? At the time, though, admittedly, they were not super popular, but they were pretty popular, especially in Terran vs. Terran. You can see that they have their use cases, right? But especially in this matchup is where they really shine. Alright, so Cure is moving across the map. That does mean that these Ravens should be able to get quite a bit of work done. 1 auto turret in the natural. Delaying so much mining time, right? So every second that an SCV is not mining, it's about a mineral lost, which is very, very significant. Auto turret inside of the main base. Gets a worker. Might get a second worker. Yep, will indeed get a couple of those SCVs here. And this is just so annoying, right? Hundreds and hundreds of minerals lost here, of potential mining timing, or potential mining time. Okay, so we have a bit of a difference right now. Cure has decided to take the base north of the natural. INnoVation is mining out the minerals here in the back and goes for the one on the low ground instead. I found that, especially as Terran, taking this base over here is difficult because now you're going to have to defend not only this ramp over here, which is where a lot of engagements will be coming from, but you also have to defend the ramp over here and this choke point. So your positioning on structures has to be really good. Like, INnoVation has already created like a bit of a highway over here to make sure that his units can actually move from the natural to watch the third base. But if, say, like you filled up this entire area of the map, those siege tanks could never go over there. So you may see a drop coming in, you may try and send units over there, but it's very difficult. Oof. Cyclone actually almost falls there to the auto turret. SCVs, though, do indeed repair it. But so much damage is being done here by INnoVation, man. How many workers has he killed? 19? Oof. It's just a couple here and there, but yeah, that certainly adds up. Does he still have all those ravens too? How many workers did he lose? Yeah, he did not lose any ravens. Not losing ravens is nice. Alright, so I'm liking this position here for INnoVation a lot. He's got those sensor towers as well to see exactly where the army units are going to be coming from and what angle he needs to defend. So he's leaving apparently most of his movable army in either like he's actually leaving it in the main base. So he can scramble it down towards the low ground or towards this low ground right over here. I like that a lot. Now I love this as well actually from Cure. He's pretending like he wants to go over there. Oh, he actually is. Is he not? No. Yeah, he's not even sure himself, or maybe he is, but he's just trying to outsmart his opponent. Big drop over here, though. Ooh, we do see a couple of interference matrices drop as well by Cure. Shuts down a couple of tanks, but at the same time, the same thing is happening here by INnoVation. And he's just simply got that defender's advantage, right? So his units are spawning closer to the combat. Sensor tower will be picked off here, it looks like. Yep, it will be burned down, but that is a lot of damage, once again, being done by INnoVation. He did end up losing that command center, though. +2/+2 coming up. We do see the +1 weapons upgrade as well. Both players are going for that right now for the vehicles. I think I prefer this location, honestly, for Cure. Like, this location here on the map is just easier to defend. I guess the big advantage of taking this one is that you can probably take the gold base as a follow-up relatively easily. Can you? Well, you could mine it from here, right? You can just put down the command center over here and then mine without that gas. Not a terrible idea. INnoVation, though, obviously loads up once again a bunch of medivacs because apparently that's his bread and butter right now. Doom drop after doom drop after doom drop. He's showing units on the top section of the map. This will be spotted, obviously, by that sensor tower, which may give Cure a false sense of security because these drops are gonna hurt. This is certainly gonna be capable of dealing a lot of damage. Okay, yeah. Oh my god. These Marines, man. They are the sacrificial lamb right here of INnoVation's army, because this is distracting the entire force of Cure from this big drop that's currently heading towards the main base. INnoVation completely blindsiding his opponent, drops all of those units inside of the main base. 2 tanks do fall pretty quickly, but it looks like a couple will still live. Cure decides to tap out upon seeing that army and realizing that he's never gonna break that. And it is indeed INnoVation that wins this best of 5 series in a 3-1 fashion. I hope that you enjoyed watching this series. If you did, hit that like button down below. If you want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button. But for now, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. Don't forget to smile. And I'll see you once again in the next one.